The Cuban Missile Crisis was a terrifying standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union in October 1962. For 13 days, the world held its breath, fearing a nuclear war that could have ended civilization as we knew it. This crisis, sparked by the Soviet Union's placement of nuclear missiles in Cuba, brought the two superpowers closer to war than ever before. Understanding the events of those 13 days is crucial to grasping the dynamics of the Cold War and the importance of diplomacy in the face of existential threats. The Cuban Missile Crisis stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the devastating potential of nuclear weapons. It highlighted the dangers of miscalculation and the importance of clear communication between nations, especially during times of heightened tension. The lessons learned during those tense days continue to shape international relations and arms control efforts today. To understand the Cuban Missile Crisis, we must first delve into the complex dynamics of the Cold War. Following World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as superpowers, each with their own ideologies and global ambitions. The United States championed democracy and capitalism, while the Soviet Union promoted communism. This fundamental ideological divide fueled a rivalry that played out on a global scale. Both sides engaged in an arms race, amassing vast nuclear arsenals capable of unimaginable destruction. They also competed for influence around the world, supporting different sides in regional conflicts and vying for political and economic dominance. The Cold War was a period of intense suspicion and mistrust, where even seemingly minor events could escalate into major international crises. Into this volatile mix stepped Cuba, a small island nation just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. In 1959, Fidel Castro led a revolution that overthrew the US-backed Batista regime and established a communist government. The United States, alarmed by the presence of a communist state so close to its shores, imposed economic sanctions on Cuba and severed diplomatic ties. Castro, seeking support against what he perceived as American aggression, turned to the Soviet Union. The Soviets, eager to expand their influence in the Western Hemisphere, embraced Castro's Cuba as a strategic ally. This alliance, forged in the crucible of Cold War tensions, would have far-reaching consequences. In the summer of 1962, the Soviet Union began secretly installing nuclear-armed missiles in Cuba. This move was a direct response to the United States' placement of Jupiter missiles in Turkey, right on the Soviet Union's border. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev believed that placing missiles in Cuba would deter a potential American invasion of the island and provide leverage in negotiations with the United States. The United States discovered the Soviet missiles in October 1962 through aerial reconnaissance photographs. The news honestly sent shockwaves through the American government and public. The presence of Soviet nuclear missiles just 90 miles from Florida was seen as an unacceptable threat to U.S. national security. President John F. Kennedy faced an unprecedented crisis. The Soviet missiles in Cuba represented a direct and immediate threat to the United States. Kennedy assembled a group of advisors, known as the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, or EXCOM, to help him navigate this dangerous situation. After days of tense debate, Kennedy decided against a surprise military strike on Cuba, which could have triggered a nuclear war. Instead, he opted for a combination of diplomacy and military pressure. He ordered a naval blockade of Cuba to prevent further Soviet shipments and demanded the removal of the missiles already in place. For 13 days, the world watched and waited, fearing the worst. Finally, after a tense exchange of messages and back-channel negotiations, a breakthrough was achieved. Khrushchev agreed to remove the Soviet missiles from Cuba in exchange for a U.S. pledge not to invade the island. The United States also, quietly, agreed to remove its Jupiter missiles from Turkey. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a defining moment in the Cold War. It brought the world to the brink of nuclear war and highlighted the devastating consequences of miscalculation and escalation. The crisis also demonstrated the importance of clear communication, diplomacy, and a willingness to compromise in resolving international conflicts. The lessons learned from the Cuban Missile Crisis continue to resonate today. The crisis spurred the creation of a hotline between Washington and Moscow. allowing for direct communication between the leaders of the two superpowers. It also led to the signing of the Limited Test Ban Treaty in 1963, which banned nuclear weapon tests in the atmosphere, underwater, and outer space. The Cuban Missile Crisis serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of diplomacy in navigating the complex and often dangerous world of international relations.